On the morning of October 17th, 1937, a lighthouse keeper named Elias Crow wrote in his official logbook that Black Gull Island had moved 312 feet west overnight. The proof was a government survey marker now standing in open water. And to this day, nobody can explain how an island made of stone changed its position without a storm, an earthquake, or a single witness willing to speak. That was the first sentence I found. Not in a newspaper, not in a book, not in one of those strange pamphlets passed around by collectors of maritime folklore. It was written in pencil, on government paper, inside a salt-stained lighthouse log that had been misfiled for almost 80 years under the name of a different station. The file was thin, too thin, 16 pages, 2 photographs, 1 broken brass key, a folded map with water damage along the edges, and a final page that had been torn out so carefully the remaining fibers still lined the binding like threads from a wound. The label on the folder read, Black Gull Lighthouse, decommissioned, 1937. But that was wrong. Black Gull Lighthouse was not decommissioned in 1937. According to the official registry, it was destroyed in a winter gale in 1941. That is the first contradiction. The second is that no storm large enough to destroy a lighthouse was recorded in that region in 1941. The third is that every nautical chart printed after 1938 shows Black Gull Island in a slightly different place than every chart printed before 1937. Not by miles. Not enough for most people to notice. Just enough to make one question impossible to ignore. Did the cartographers correct an old mistake? Or did the island really move? For most of the 20th century, Black Gull Island was hardly worth mentioning. It sat off the northern Atlantic coast. A dark, narrow strip of rock surrounded by cold water, fog, and seabirds that circled the cliffs in such numbers that sailors could hear them before they could see land. It was not large. Less than a mile from end to end. Barely wide enough for a keeper's cottage, a coal shed, a cistern, and the lighthouse itself. But ships feared it. The waters around Black Gull were shallow in strange places and deep where they should not have been. Men who sailed near it said the compass behaved badly there. Not wildly, not spinning like something from a ghost story, just slightly wrong. A few degrees off, then normal again. In ordinary waters, a few degrees meant nothing. Near Black Gull, it could split a hull open. That was why the lighthouse was built. The official construction date was 1868. A stone tower, 39 feet high, built from dark basalt blocks quarried, supposedly, from the island itself. A keeper's dwelling was added in 1870. A fog bell in 1874. A small landing crane in 1882 after 3 supply boats were damaged trying to approach the western rocks. The early records are ordinary. Oil deliveries, broken glass, wick replacements, fog bell repairs, reports of birds striking the lantern room during storms, complaints about the damp, requests for more coal. Then, beginning in 1903, the records become strange. That year, Keeper Samuel Bell reported that the western landing steps had settled lower than expected, although they had been carved directly into bedrock. In 1911, Keeper Arthur Mays wrote that the tide marks on the rocks no longer matched the tide tables. In 1919, Assistant Keeper Daniel Reese noted that the shadow of the tower at noon fell across ground where no such ground had been visible the prior summer. That entry was crossed out, not by Reese, by a supervisor. In the margin, someone wrote, "Do not include speculation in station logs." After that, the records become ordinary again. Too ordinary. For nearly 2 decades, every Black Gull log reads like it was written by a man afraid of being noticed. Then came Elias Crow. Crow was not a superstitious man. That matters, because every time a strange event survives in a maritime record, Someone later tries to explain it away with sailors' tales, drink, fog, loneliness, or the slow madness of men living too long with waves beating against stone. But Elias Crow was not known for imagination. He had served 18 years in lighthouse stations before Black Gull. He had worked through storms, wrecks, illness, and isolation. His handwriting was neat. His reports were precise. He measured lamp oil to the quart, wind direction to the point, visibility to the mile. Other keepers described him as quiet, stubborn, humorless, and almost painfully honest. One inspector wrote, "Crow does not embellish. If anything, he underreports. That is why his final logbook matters." Elias Crow arrived at Black Gull Island in April of 1936. He was 49 years old. His wife had died 3 years earlier. His only son had joined the merchant service and rarely wrote. Crow requested a solitary post, and Black Gull was considered difficult enough that no one questioned why a man might want to be alone there. At first, his entries were routine. April 9th. Arrived 3:10 p.m. landing difficult. Westerly swell. Tower in acceptable condition. Lantern glass requires cleaning. April 14th. Fog. Bell operating. Gull population excessive. Cistern water sour. May 2nd. Paint peeling north wall. Ordered lime wash. May 28th. Supply boat delayed. Weather clear. Sea calm. Nothing unusual. Then, on June 3rd, he wrote a line that would mean nothing unless you knew what came later. Found old survey plug east of coal shed. Not marked on station plan. A survey plug is not dramatic. It is usually a metal marker drilled into stone, used by surveyors to establish a fixed point. A way of saying, here, exactly here, is where we measured from. Crow found one behind the coal shed, then another near the cistern, then a third at the base of the tower, half covered by lichen. He mentioned them only briefly, but in the folder, beside his logbook, there was a small folded sheet labeled Private Measurements, EC. That sheet is where the story really begins. Crow had started measuring the island, not officially, not with government equipment, just with rope, stakes, chalk marks, and the patience of a man with nothing but time. He measured the distance from the tower door to the eastern cliff, then from the tower door to the landing steps, then from the cistern to the old survey plug. He did it again a week later, and again. The numbers changed. Not much. An inch here, 3 inches there. At first, any rational person would blame the rope. The weather, human error, uneven ground, loose chalk, tired eyes. Crow did too. On July 11th, 1936, he wrote, "Measurements inconsistent, likely my own error. Will repeat with chain if possible." He requested a survey chain on the next supply order. The request was denied. There was no reason to send survey equipment to a lighthouse keeper. So Crow continued with what he had. By August, his tone changed. The western steps are farther from the tower than in June. Eastern cliff is nearer. No visible rockfall. No subsidence. That sentence sounds impossible. If one side of the island was farther from the tower and the other was nearer, then either the tower had moved or the island was changing shape. But Crow did not use those words. He stayed careful. He wrote only what he could observe. September 2nd. At low tide, discovered iron ring on eastern flats. Same pattern as landing mooring. No record of second mooring. Ring lies below ordinary waterline. September 6th. Found carved steps descending into water on east side. Old. Worn. Not visible on 1931 station plan. September 9th. If steps are genuine, island may once have extended farther east. That entry was not crossed out because no supervisor saw it. Not yet. Crow was keeping 2 records. The official station log, which he knew would be inspected, and his private notebook, where he wrote the things that did not belong in official language. The notebook was not in the folder. Only fragments were 3 pages, torn from a binding and folded into the map. The first fragment reads, There is too much island under the water. Not broken pieces, not fallen cliff. Built surfaces, edges, steps. A wall line running east below low tide. The second fragment. Bell said the landing settled. Mays said the tides were wrong. Reese saw new ground in the tower shadow. They all saw parts of it. None had the whole. The third fragment. It is not sinking, it is passing. Those 4 words appear again later, on the back of a photograph. It is not sinking, it is passing. The photograph shows the eastern side of Black Gull at low tide. The image is faded, but the outline is clear enough. Dark rocks, white bird droppings, a sloping shelf of stone exposed by the water, and in the lower corner, almost hidden by glare, a straight edge. Too straight to be natural, a line of stone blocks running beneath the surface. Someone circled it in pencil, probably Crow. Under the circle, he wrote, not cliff, wall. By October 1936, Crow was no longer just measuring distance. He was comparing maps. The station had old nautical charts, some printed in the 1880s, some updated in the 1920s. Most keepers used them for practical navigation. Crow used them like evidence. He placed one over another and held them against the lantern glass. He marked the outline of Black Gull Island as it appeared in each edition. The shapes did not match. Again, not dramatically. No one looking casually would notice. But Crow noticed. In the 1884 chart, Black Gull was longer east to west. In the 1902 chart, the eastern tail appeared shorter. In the 1927 chart, the western rocks were more pronounced. In the 1933 chart, the island sat slightly west of the old bearing line from Cape Alder. Cartographers make corrections. Coastlines are redrawn. Early surveys are imperfect. But Crow found something else. The Lighthouse Tower, which should have been the fixed point, had been plotted in different positions relative to offshore rocks. That made no sense. Rocks can erode, sandbars can shift. Small islands can change shape. But a lighthouse built on bedrock does not wander across a chart unless the chart is wrong, or unless the ground beneath it is not as fixed as it appears. Crow wrote to the district office in November. His letter is not in the file. Only the reply survived. Dated November 21st, 1936. Keeper Crow, your concerns regarding historical chart discrepancies are noted. The office advises that minor inconsistencies in older coastal surveys are common and should not interfere with station operation. You are instructed to maintain regular light, fog signal, and log duties. Do not expend station time on unofficial survey work. It was signed by Assistant Superintendent Harold Venn. A perfectly ordinary bureaucratic letter, except for the handwritten note at the bottom. Not written by Venn, written by someone else. He found the plugs. That note changes everything, because it suggests the office already knew there were survey markers on the island. Markers not included on the station plan. Markers Crow was not supposed to find. After that letter, Crow's official logs became shorter. December 4th, fog, lamp maintained. December 9th, snow, bell line frozen, cleared. December 17th, sea moderate, birds gone. But his private measurements continued. The folder contains one full page from January 1937. At the top, Crow wrote, distances from tower threshold to fixed points. Then a list. Eastern cliff marker, 144 feet 8 in western landing bolt. 203 feet 2 in cistern plug. 51 feet 6 in coal shed corner. 76 feet 1 in. Beside each number there is a second number in red pencil, then a third, then a fourth. The changes are small but consistent. The eastern cliff was getting closer. The western landing was getting farther away. The cistern remained nearly constant. The coal shed shifted slightly south. This is not erosion. Erosion does not move selected points in different directions while leaving others stable. Crow knew that. By February, his writing had become harder to read, not frantic. Just heavier, as if the pencil had been pressed into the page. February 3rd. Heard stone noise below during calm water. Not wave impact. Slow grinding. Duration approximately 9 minutes. February 4th. New crack inside oil room floor. Runs north-south. No tremor felt. February 8th. At low tide, eastern wall line visible again. Measured exposed length. 41 feet. Appears to continue beneath weed. February 12th. Dreamed of bell ringing underwater. Woke before dawn. Bell was still. That is the first human moment in the record. Until then, Crow had been all measurements and observations. But the island was entering his sleep. Every keeper knew isolation could do that. Sound carried strangely. Fog made distances uncertain. A bird scraping its claws on glass could become a hand. A wave under rock could become a voice. Crow would have known this better than anyone. That may be why he kept testing himself. On February 19th, he performed what he called a sanity check. He placed 3 stones in a triangle near the tower door and measured them at noon, sunset, and dawn. No change. Then he measured the tower to the eastern cliff. Change. He wrote, "Small objects remain. Larger relation alters. Movement may not be local." That line is difficult to understand. But it seems Crow was beginning to suspect that the island was not simply cracking, sinking, or sliding. The relationships between fixed points were changing, as if the whole shape of the island was being stretched or rotated. As if Black Gull was not one piece of stone, as if it were part of something larger beneath the water. March 1937 brought the first outside witness. A supply boat called the Marion E. reached Black Gull on March 6th after 3 weeks of bad weather. The captain, Joseph Hale, signed the delivery sheet. Coal, flour, lamp oil, salt pork, nails, letters. On the back of the delivery sheet, Crow wrote, "Hale says landing is wrong. Approached from usual mark and nearly struck east shelf. Says island light bears differently from Cape Alder. He asked if tower lens had been turned. It has not. Captain Hale's own log for that day is missing. Not destroyed. Missing. The Maritime Archive has logs for the Marion E. from January, February, April, and May 1937. March is gone. Just 1 month. The month he visited Black Gull. This is how these stories hide. Not in a dramatic fire. Not in a locked vault. A single month missing from a boat log. A lighthouse file under the wrong name. A map corrected without explanation. A final page torn from a notebook. Individually, each absence means nothing. Together, they begin to form a shape. On March 12th, Crow climbed down the eastern rocks at the lowest tide of the season. He carried a lantern, rope, chalk, and a camera. What he found there appears in the second photograph. This one is darker than the first. It shows a flat stone surface normally covered by water. Across it run 3 parallel grooves, each about 6 inches wide, cut or worn into the rock. Rail grooves. That is what Crow called them. 3 grooves running eastward below tide. 2 even for natural cut, spacing regular. Beside the grooves, he found another iron ring, then a square hole in the stone, then a section of wall with a corner, not a pile of fallen blocks. A corner. Crow drew it on the map, a right angle beneath the Atlantic. The official survey of Black Gull never mentioned underwater structures. No local history described a settlement there. No colonial record listed a wharf, fort, quarry, prison, chapel, or military station on the island. The lighthouse, according to history, had been the first permanent construction on Black Gull. But Crow had photographed what looked like older construction beneath it. That was when he stopped asking whether the island had moved, and started asking what the island actually was. April 1st, 1937. Tower foundation not original to tower. Blocks beneath are larger than 1868 stone. Different tool marks. Builders used existing platform. April 3rd. Removed loose mortar in cellar wall. Found void behind, air moving through. April 5th. Do not open further until daylight. April the 6th. Opened. Passage or drain behind cellar. Too narrow to enter. Stonework continues inward, downward. Smell of salt and old air. The lighthouse had a cellar. Most did. Coal, tools, spare oil, emergency stores. But Crow found a void behind the cellar wall, and beyond it, stonework descending into darkness. That meant the lighthouse had not simply been built on bedrock. It had been built over something. Something older. Something already hollow. There are no entries for April 7th, 8th, or 9th. On April 10th, Crow wrote only, "Heard bell below again." There is no bell below. After that, his handwriting changed. The letters became narrow and slanted, as if he were writing quickly. April 13th, found brass plate inside void. Covered in mineral crust, cleaned corner, not English, not Latin. Symbols arranged in rows, reburied behind oil crate. No brass plate was found in the recovered file. If it existed, it vanished with him. April 18th. Birds will not land on East Shelf now. They circle and turn back. April 21st. At 2:17 a.m. Light beam did not strike fog bank where expected. Rotation correct. Lens correct. Fog bank appeared displaced. Impossible to judge distance. April 22nd. I am beginning to understand why the old plugs were hidden. They were not measuring the island. They were measuring its returns. Its returns. That phrase appears nowhere else in the file, but it suggests a pattern, not one movement, multiple movements, as if Black Gull had shifted before, as if surveyors had been tracking it, as if the island left and came back, not fully, not cleanly, but enough to require markers, measurements, and silence. In May, a district inspector arrived. His name was Edwin Lask. He came with Captain Hale on the Marion E. The inspection report should have been routine. Condition of lamp, cleanliness of quarters, supplies, structural state, keeper conduct. The report in the file is only one page. At the top, Lask wrote, "Station functioning. Keeper appears fatigued but competent." Below that, keeper has developed fixation on alleged movement of island and submerged masonry, advised to refrain from unsupported claims. Then, near the bottom, examined eastern rocks at low tide. Saw nothing conclusive. Nothing conclusive. Those words are common in official documents. They do not mean nothing was there. They mean the person writing the report has chosen not to say what it was. Because attached to Lask's report is a small sketch. It is faint, but visible. 3 parallel grooves, a square hole, a right-angle wall, the same things Crow photographed. Lask saw them. He simply called them inconclusive. Crow's private note from that day is far less polite. Lask saw the grooves. He saw the wall. He said, "These are not for your log." I asked him if he knew of prior works here. He said, "There are no prior works here." Then he asked where I found the survey plugs. There it is again. The plugs. The hidden fixed points. The proof that someone before Crow had measured Black Gull with unusual care. After the inspection, the tone of the story changes. This is where a mystery becomes a pressure. Crow was no longer just a lonely man noticing strange things. Now the office knew he was noticing, and the office wanted him to stop. On June 2nd, 1937, Crow received a sealed envelope. The envelope itself survived. The letter inside did not. On the front, in black ink, someone had written, "To be destroyed after reading." Crow did not destroy the envelope. He kept it. On the back, he wrote, "They confirm without saying." That same week, the Lighthouse telegraph line failed. Black Gull had a weak but usable communication line during fair weather, running by submarine cable to the mainland station. On June 7th, Crow reported intermittent signal. On June 9th, no signal. On June 11th, he wrote, "Line dead. No visible break at shore connection." The repair was delayed for 6 weeks. 6 weeks alone, with no telegraph, no regular supply, and an island he believed was moving. During that period, Crow's log becomes the document people still argue over. Some say it is a record of geological instability. Some say it is evidence of a man losing his mind. Some say it is fiction inserted later. But the paper, ink, pencil, and binding all match the period. The handwriting matches known letters from Elias Crow. And several entries align with tide tables, supply records, and weather reports from 1937. Whatever happened, Crow wrote it while stationed at Black Gull. June 14th. Low tide exposed more of East Passage. Grooves continue farther than before. Either sand removed or island relation changed. June 16th. Set lantern at eastern wall line overnight. By morning, lantern was 9 feet from wall line. No wind. No tide reached it. June 18th. Repeated with coal bucket. Same result, lesser distance. Objects do not move. Wall line does. Or I fail to understand frame. June 20th. There was knocking below after midnight. 3 sets of 7. Then grinding. Then silence. June 22nd. Dreamed of men working under the tower. Woke to smell of hot metal. Lamp room cold. June 25th. Found old boot in cellar void. Not mine. Too small. Leather hardened. Laced with cord. June 29th. Do not go below when bell sounds. That line is written alone in the middle of the page. No explanation. No follow-up. Just, do not go below when bell sounds. By July, Crow had begun marking the walls inside the lighthouse. Small chalk lines near the stairwell. Measurements from door frames. Scratches at floor level. When investigators later searched the station, they found some of them. One mark near the cellar door had a date. July 3rd, wall here. A second mark, several inches away. July 9th, wall here. Stone walls do not move several inches in 6 days. Unless the marks were wrong. Unless Crow was wrong. Unless the lighthouse itself was shifting. But the official salvage report from 1938 notes, interior markings present. Purpose unknown. Some appear to indicate structural displacement not supported by external inspection. Not supported. Again, careful words. Again, refusal without explanation. On July 14th, Crow wrote the first direct statement. Black Gull is not an island. It is the visible part of a larger structure. The rest is beneath water, beneath silt, or elsewhere. Elsewhere. That is the word that makes the entry unsettling. Not beneath. Elsewhere. Crow was no longer thinking only in terms of hidden ruins. He believed Black Gull was connected to something not fully present. Something that appeared, shifted, returned, or passed through the place where the island stood. There is no scientific language for that in his notes. Only metaphor. Passing. Returning. Misaligned. Out of bearing. On July 19th, he observed the stars. Lighthouse keepers often use stars for orientation. Crow knew the sky. He wrote, Polaris bearing from tower rail, inconsistent with fixed mainland light. Checked compass, then checked by sight. Mainland cannot move. Star cannot move. Therefore, station position or observation point has altered. This was the entry that seems to have frightened him. Because after it, he wrote a personal note addressed to his son, Thomas. It was never sent. Tom, if they tell you I drowned, ask where. There is hardly enough water on the east shelf at low tide to take a man unless he walks where the stone drops. I have no intention of walking there. If they tell you I was ill, ask Dr. Marin about my last examination. If they tell you there was a storm, check the mainland glass. There will be no storm. I do not know what this place is. I only know men knew before me. They marked it, buried the marks, built the light, and waited. Your mother used to say the sea keeps nothing. She was wrong. The sea keeps everything. It only gives it back in pieces. He never mailed it. Maybe he meant to. Maybe he knew the next supply boat would be watched. Maybe he no longer trusted anyone. On August 2nd, the supply boat returned. Captain Hale was not aboard. A different captain came, a man named Willis Trent. Crow's official log says, supplies received. Captain unfamiliar with landing. minor hull scrape. His private note says, "They did not send hail. New captain would not speak except to ask whether I had written to anyone." He brought no mail. He took the outgoing pouch without letting me seal it. After that, Crow stopped sending reports for 9 days. The district office later claimed no interruption occurred. But the mainland message ledger shows a gap. No confirmed communication from Black Gull between August 3rd and August 12th. When messages resumed, they were shorter, almost coded. August 12th, light maintained, island quiet. August 13th, light maintained, island quiet. August 14th, light maintained, island quiet. The same phrase, 3 days. Then, on August 15th, island not quiet. That is all. On August 17th, Crow descended into the cellar void. We know this because of the rope. When the station was searched later, a length of rope was found tied to an iron bracket near the cellar stairs. The rope extended into the opening behind the wall and had been cut, not broken. Crow's entry: entered passage at 10:40 a.m., crawled approximately 18 feet downward, then chamber widened. Stone dry, air colder than cellar. Found second wall with same symbols as brass plate. Sound of water beyond. Returned due to lamp smoke. The next entry: there are stairs under the lighthouse. Not natural, not for drainage. They turn east. And then, the bell is not a warning from outside. It is rung from below. That sentence is one of the reasons the file became legend among the few researchers who ever saw it. Because Black Gull's fog bell was mounted outside, near the tower. Heavy, mechanical, visible. There was no second bell, no underwater bell, no bell below. And yet earlier keepers had mentioned strange sound. Bell's settled landing. Mace wrong tides. Reese's new ground. Crow's underwater ringing. Separate observations across 34 years. One place, one pattern. On September 1st, Crow wrote, "I saw the island move today. Not in pieces, not like a slide." The horizon altered first. The mainland light lowered, then rose. The eastern shelf widened without water retreating. The tower groaned. Birds lifted all at once, duration perhaps 40 seconds. After, western landing farther by measurement. This is the first complete description. He did not say the ground shook. He did not report a wave. He did not mention wind. He described a change in relation, as if the island and everything around it briefly disagreed about where it should be. On September 3rd, old survey plug near Cole's shed now cracked. Under crack is another plug, older, larger. They have been placing new marks over old marks. That means the measuring had gone on longer than 1937, longer than Crow, longer than the current lighthouse service, possibly back to construction, possibly before. September 7th, I scraped the lower plug, marked with date, 1821. That is impossible. The lighthouse was built in 1868. Officially, no permanent structure existed on Black Gull in 1821. So who placed a survey plug there? And what were they measuring? Crow then did something that may have sealed his fate. He made a copy of the map. He traced the old island outlines from the charts, added his own measurements, marked the submerged wall, the grooves, the cellar passage, the survey plugs, and the apparent direction of movement. At the top he wrote, "Black Gull does not erode. It translates." Translate in geometry means to move without rotating or changing shape. But Crow's own measurements suggested both translation and distortion. Maybe he used the closest word he knew. Maybe he meant something else. At the bottom of the map, he wrote, "Next return due within 30-40 days if intervals hold." Intervals. He believed he had found a schedule. The island was not randomly moving. It was moving according to a pattern. The final month begins on September 18th. By then, Crow's entries had become a mixture of observation, fear, and preparation. September 18th. Packed copies in oilskin. If removed, look inside cistern lining. No copies were found in the cistern, but the lining had been recently disturbed. September 21st. Mainland light bearing wrong again. Not by compass, by eye. Cannot trust charts. Cannot trust shore. September 23rd. Someone signaled from water east of island. 3 flashes. No vessels seen. Answered once with shudder. No reply. September 24th. Do not answer again. September 27th. Found dead gulls around eastern shelf. No marks. Eyes clouded blue. September 29th. Bell below at 1:12 a.m. Then voices. Not clear, not English, or too far to hear. September 30th. I have locked the cellar. Key on chain. If I am gone, do not open when tide is low. The brass key in the folder may be that key. It is small, darkened by corrosion, and tagged with a paper label. Cellar? On October 2nd, the Marion E returned unexpectedly. Captain Hale was back. That is one of the strangest details. After being absent for months, Hale appears again for one final visit. The delivery record shows only 2 items, lamp oil and mail. But Crow wrote, Hale warned me. Said he was told not to land, then told to land. Said men in district office asked whether I spoke of East Steps. He would not come inside. He said, they moved it once before. When I asked who, he said, not men. Captain Hale disappears from the record after that. His boat continued operating under another captain. No death certificate has been found for Joseph Hale. No retirement notice, no transfer, just absence. On October 6th, Crow wrote his longest entry. It reads like a confession. I have tried to hold to ordinary explanations because ordinary explanations keep a man fit for duty. Rock shifts, water cuts, surveyors err, charts improve, memory fails. Men alone hear things. These are all true, but they are not sufficient. The eastern works are older than the light. The lower plug predates the station. The cellar passage was sealed before my tenure. The office knew of the markers. Hale knew the landing had changed. Lask saw the grooves and omitted them. What stands above water is only the topmost piece. It comes into alignment at intervals. When it does, more of the old works show. When it passes out, the sea covers them, and the charts are corrected. The light was not built to warn ships away from rock. It was built to mark the return point. Read that again. Not to warn ships away from rock. To mark the return point. Crow believed the lighthouse was not a navigational aid in the ordinary sense. He believed it was a marker, a fixed signal placed on a moving or returning structure. A beacon not for sailors, but for whoever was watching the island itself. On October 10th, return beginning. Eastern shelf exposed at half tide. Wall visible, passage breathing cold air. Bell below twice. October 12th, mainland appears too low. Horizon wrong, stars sharp, birds gone. October 14th, measured from tower to western bolt. Increase of 37 feet since August. Impossible, repeated twice. October 15th, survey plug 1821 now above ground. Previously below crack. Ground around coals shed lifted or old surface returning. October 16th, fog all day. Light beam struck something east of island. Not fog, hard reflection. No vessel, no land. It shone back. Then comes the final full entry. October 17th, 1937. The page is pressed so hard the pencil nearly tears through. At dawn, island position altered. Western landing no longer bears with Cape Alder. Government survey marker C3, formerly 28 feet inland from East Shelf, now stands in open water approximately 312 feet east of present shore. No storm, no tremor, no abnormal tide. The eastern wall is fully visible. Steps descend beyond prior waterline into dry stone passage. I heard machinery below, slow, heavy, as if a chain were drawn through the rock. I went to the tower rail and saw, eastward through fog, a line of lamps beneath the water. Not reflections, not stars. A street, or something like one, lit below the sea. If this is the return, then Black Gull is not moving west. We are seeing less of what lies east. The island is not arriving. It is leaving. That was the last complete page. After it, there is one torn stub where another page once existed. Only 5 words remain near the binding. I know who waits below. The rest is gone. Elias Crow disappeared sometime between the night of October 17th and the morning of October 19th. The official report says the supply crew found the lighthouse lamp still burning, the door unlocked, breakfast untouched, and the cellar sealed. Crow's coat hung by the door. His boots were missing. His pocket watch was on the table, stopped at 2:17. The same time he had once recorded the light beam, failing to strike the fog bank where expected. There was no blood, no sign of struggle, no body in the water, no boat missing. The sea was calm. The weather log from Cape Alder recorded light wind, clear pressure, and no storm. Exactly as Crow had predicted in the letter to his son. The search lasted 4 days. Men checked the cliffs, the landing rocks, the cistern, the cellar, the tower, and the nearby waters. They did not open the passage behind the cellar wall. At least, the official report says they did not. But the salvage notes mention fresh tool marks around the sealed stones. Someone opened it. Someone looked. And then someone sealed it again. Black Gull Lighthouse was abandoned soon after. Not officially decommissioned. Not yet. Just temporarily unmanned due to unsafe landing conditions. The charts were updated the following year. The island outline changed. The eastern shelf disappeared. The western rocks expanded. Survey marker C3 was removed from public maps. The 1821 plug was never mentioned. By 1941, the lighthouse was listed as destroyed in a gale, a convenient ending, a storm no one recorded, a destruction no one photographed, a ruin that erased the need for further inspection. But one fisherman's statement survived in a local paper from November 1938. It was only 3 sentences long. He claimed that on a moonless night near Black Gull, he saw a light beneath the water, moving in a straight line where no ship could pass. When asked if it was the old lighthouse beam reflecting on the sea, he said no. The lighthouse light was above. This one was below. That clipping was not in the official file. It was folded inside the map. Someone saved it. Maybe Crow. Maybe someone after him. Maybe someone who understood that small scraps are how buried histories survive. Today, Black Gull Island is difficult to locate on modern maps. Some say it was renamed. Some say it eroded into a reef. Some say the coordinates were absorbed into a restricted navigation zone after the war. But older charts still show it. And if you compare them carefully, the island shifts. A little west, a little south, a little shorter, then longer, then gone, then marked as shoal, then marked as hazard, then not marked at all. Most people would call that cartographic correction, and maybe that is all it is. Maybe Elias Crow was an isolated man who misread maps, feared shadows, and turned ordinary coastal erosion into a private mythology. Maybe the survey plugs were routine. Maybe the underwater walls were natural joints in basalt. Maybe the missing logs were coincidence. Maybe the torn page contained nothing more than the final collapse of a tired mind. That is the comfortable explanation. But comfort is not the same as truth, because the file still contains the photograph, the eastern shelf, the straight wall, the grooves, the survey marker standing where the map says land should have been, and on the back, in Crow's hand, the sentence he wrote twice. It is not sinking, it is passing. There is one final detail. It does not appear in the official report. It comes from the inventory made when the Black Gull file was transferred to storage in 1954. The clerk listed every object in the folder. 2 photographs, 1 map, 1 brass key, 16 pages, 1 envelope, and 1 lighthouse logbook. Beside the logbook entry, the clerk wrote, "Last page removed prior to receipt. Binding damp, smell of salt water." That means the final page was already gone before the archive received it. Taken by whom? The district office? The salvage crew? Captain Hale? Crow himself? No one knows. But in 1982, an anonymous envelope arrived at a small maritime museum 2 counties inland. No return address. Inside was a single strip of paper, badly damaged, with pencil writing across it. The museum cataloged it as unrelated and placed it in a miscellaneous drawer. Years later, when compared with Crow's surviving logbook, the handwriting appeared similar, not confirmed. Similar. The strip contained only one sentence. When the island moved, the door under the light opened, and the men below already knew my name. That is where the record ends. Not with an answer, not with a body, not with a confirmed fraud or a confirmed miracle. Just a lighthouse keeper, a moving island, a government marker in the wrong place, and a final sentence that should not exist. So the question remains, if Black Gull Island never moved, why did the charts change? If Elias Crow imagined everything, why did earlier keepers report pieces of the same pattern? If the underwater walls were nothing, why were they left out of the inspection? And if the lighthouse was built only to keep ships away from danger, why did Crow believe it was built to show something below the sea exactly where to return? Maybe the island is gone now. Maybe it never was where the map said it was. Or maybe, somewhere off that cold Atlantic coast, beneath fog and black water, Black Gull is still passing in and out of alignment. And one night, when the tide is low enough, and the light hits the water at the right angle, the old eastern steps will appear again. The wall will rise from beneath the surface. The survey plugs will line up. The bell below will ring. And anyone standing in the tower will understand what Elias Crow understood too late. The lighthouse was not warning us away from the island. It was warning the island away from us.